When we immerse ourselves in the world of water, a range of natural forces act on our body which both help and hinder our movement. Understanding how these forces affect us means we can use them to become safer and better swimmers. Forces affecting movement in the water are buoyancy, which pushes the swimmer up in the water; gravity, which pulls the swimmer down in the water; propulsion, which provides movement for the swimmer in the desired direction; and resistance, which is the force of the water that hinders a swimmer's movement in the water. When we lie in water, two forces are at work: gravity, which forces our body down in the water, and the water's buoyant force, which forces our body up. This upward force is directed through our centre of buoyancy, located around the lung area. Our centre of gravity is the point around which our body balances. In most cases, this is about midway along the body. If the centre of buoyancy and the centre of gravity are located in different points, body rotation occurs. For most of us, if we lie on our back with our arms by our side, our legs will sink. Our body will only come to rest and float in a motionless position when the centre of gravity lines up vertically with the centre of buoyancy. But look what happens when you relocate your centre of gravity along the body, so it gets closer to vertical alignment with the centre of buoyancy. Extend your arms beyond your head, remembering to stretch your arms underwater. Bend your knees so your heels drop vertically downwards. Raise the fingertips out of the water to increase the effect of the gravitational force on the fingers and hands. Then it is just a matter of putting your head back, relaxing, breathing normally, and floating. Our ability to float depends on the relationship between our body density and water density. Body density is made up of muscle, bone, air, fat, and water. Muscle and bone have a higher density than water, therefore when they are placed in water, they will sink. The water in our bodies has no effect on our body's ability to float, because it has similar density to pull water. The fat and air in our body have a lower density than water, and so when placed in water will float. People with relatively high percentages of body fat will tend to float, while those with a relatively high percentage of muscle mass will tend to sink. In general, females float better than males because they have a larger percentage of body fat and a lesser proportion of muscle. Children float better than adults, primarily because the child's torso represents a greater proportion of total body mass than an adult's. But whether or not a person is a natural floater has little long-term influence on their swimming ability. People's ability to float will vary with body density, and while good floaters are likely to learn to swim earlier, non-floaters should not be held back. A learner who is a good floater may make easier initial progress than a less buoyant learner. But the less buoyant person may make better progress later because of their greater muscle strength and endurance. So remember, a swimmer is rarely motionless in water, and buoyant aids or sculling movements can help those that find it difficult to float motionlessly. When we move through water, the force of the water also hinders our progress. This is known as resistance, of which there are three major forms: skin, frontal, and eddy resistance. We can reduce our skin resistance by wearing close-fitting swimwear or shaving our body or head. Frontal resistance occurs because as our body moves through the water, it also blocks the water from flowing past. The amount of this resistance depends on a swimmer's technique, body size, shape, and speed. For example, if the swimmer's legs drop down in the water, or if the legs snake from side to side, frontal resistance increases, slowing their forward motion. Eddy resistance occurs because our body's irregular shape disturbs the water as we move through it. The water then tumbles in behind our bodies, creating eddies of swirling water. This can be seen on the bow wave in front of the head and the turbulence of the water behind the head and down the back. Eddy turbulence actually pulls the swimmer towards the eddy. If a backstroke swimmer's head is raised too far out of the water, down go the hips and legs, and up goes the frontal eddy resistance. But by placing the head back in the water, it will help raise the hips and legs. This freestyler's arms enter across the midline of their body, causing their hips and legs to sway from side to side. Instead, the swimmer's hand should enter in front of their shoulders. This will minimise the amount of head and leg sway. A breaststroke swimmer who bends too much at the hips and draws the knees towards the chest causes a great increase in frontal resistance and eddy resistance behind. To overcome this, the swimmer should bend the knees, drawing the heels towards the buttocks, allowing the water to slip past the body with minimal change in speed or direction. The principle of propulsion is to travel forward as efficiently as possible by moving our hands and feet underwater. A swimmer's hand is like an athlete's foot because it can only move forward if the surface it pushes on remains as stationary as possible. There are several forces that help us move forward efficiently. Water friction is the pressure of the water the hand or foot pushes against. This frictional resistance increases when the hand or foot moves in a sideways or curved pathway. So we can gain a better pull on the comparatively still water by moving our hands sideways or in a curved pathway. Bending our arms underwater also provides greater propulsion thanks to the elbow's lever action. Look at these two freestyle swimmers. One has a straight arm propulsive stroke and the other's hand travels in curves, bending the arms underwater. This allows the swimmer to utilise the arm's lever action. Variations in water pressure can also assist a swimmer's propulsion. This is known as lift force. In flowing water, fast-flowing water creates low pressure, while a slow-flowing water creates high pressure. If we place an object such as our hand between these pressure systems, it moves towards the lower pressure. The power of lift force can be seen in feet-first sculling. If pitched at the correct angle, a high pressure area develops on the palm of the hand relative to the back of the hand, providing forward propulsion, while the movement pattern of the hands creates little if any turbulence behind the hand. Lift force propulsion is used extensively for breaststroke, but also applies in other strokes. Understanding the principles of buoyancy and flotation, resistance and propulsion will help swimmers of any age maximise their performance.